G'day, welcome back to Dad vs Son, and we're going to try a playthrough of Illusions of Glory by GMT Games. I'm trying a different camera angle, so more of a look down, so you may have a better perspective on what's happening. I'm trying to put the fire table here, so when I work out who's firing at who and what the outcome is, you may be able to see it. I don't know how that'll go. So I'm terribly sorry about the sound of the aircon that will cut in and out throughout this, but the simple fact is it's about 40 degrees Celsius outside and full of smoke from all the surrounding bushfires, so I can't really do much about it. I've also set it up so that you can see the dice tray, so you can see what's happening there, and I will be using and abusing wonderful Stuka Joe's card-driven game setup, which is off camera. I'm sorry, but I can't fit everything in, or else you're not going to be able to see anything. And since it's just me, it's a bit of a hassle trying to do stuff. The other thing you'll notice is a bit of a shadow there from the tripod. Again, I can't do much about that, and I've tried to reduce the glare as much as possible. What else? I think that's about it. So, as things stand at the moment, Illusions of Glory is the, I suppose, sister or brother game to Paths of Glory, whereas Paths of Glory looks to the Western Front during the First World War, or the Great War at the time. This one looks to the Eastern Front. So we're looking at the Germans here in the dark grey, the Russians in the white, Austro-Hungarians in the light grey, the Serbians in brown, our little Montenegrin unit in purple, and then down in this area at the moment are the Turks. Turn track down the bottom, the results or record track up the top. So as you can see up here, we have, like in Paths of Glory, a war status counters. They all start on 0. The national will for everybody starts on 12. VP on 15, which is halfway between 0 and 30. 0 for an allied player or allied pact win. Central powers win at 30 victory points. And the armistice marker is currently on 40. We have, like in Paths of Glory, a mandatory offensive, and the first turn of this game, it's an automatic offensive. The Russians have to complete one, and the Austro-Hungarians have to have a go at the Serbs. We have a 0 modifier at the moment for those rolls when we go into the second turn and so forth. On the side here are the Central Powers reserve box, and I've only got the Turks in there, and I've put the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians in a bowl to make it a bit easier, because these tend to fall over. And their replaceable units will go into here. The same with the Allied powers. I've only got the Serbs in there at the moment, and the Russians are in a bowl. I've placed the replacements markers just beside the board, so if we decide to play a card for replacements, it'll go up onto the records track. Whereas in this game, the allied player can start with one of these cards in their hand, which is either to drive on East Prussia or the Galicia offensive and basically start with the Austria-Hungarians. The Central Powers have these four operations points cards, and they can choose one of these to start with as well. Now, neither side has to use the card that they choose on their first action, but it must be used during the first turn, if I believe correctly. Yeah, so it's not required to be played as an event first up. There are a couple of other rules for the first summer turn of 1914, and that is that the mandatory offences, as I've set up, we can't build trenches during this first turn. We can't change war commitment levels, so even if we get enough status points to get up to or beyond limited war, we won't be able to change war status until the wrap up during the end of turn 2. Nobody can move into Romania, Bulgaria or Greece until those countries actually enter the war. And nobody can move into the Italian front, which is a little separate box here, until Italy actually enters the war. The dice tray at the moment is blocking the eliminated units box, so if I need to do anything, I'll just chuck them somewhere else. Righto. All the units are set up as per the setup table, and these two blocks of Austria-Hungarian units I've placed on an angle because they cannot attack into or enter Serbia until Serbia has fallen. So these 4 units, these 2 stacks can, but these ones cannot. And I think that is about it. So, choice for the Allies, whether we go in after the Germans or the Austro-Hungarians to start with. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go after the drive on East Prussia. So I'm going to shuffle this card back into the mobilisation deck for the Allies. And then I'm going to set out card A, B, D and E, and this will form part of C, which has got the rest of the deck. And as per the Stuka Joe's setup, I'll turn over card A and B to start with as well to see how it goes. Now, the 4 cards that the Central Powers have, what I intend to do is use the Guns of August card for them, because this equates to sort of like the Allies' use your words, Stephen, use your words. This equates to the drive on East Prussia or the Glacier offensive. So that will sort of even things out. If we were playing 2 players, then we would choose the card that we wanted for each side and then show it to the other person anyway. So, okay. So I'm going to place that again on the board. So the die or dice that we are using for Stuka Joe's, 6-sided die that I've made up as per his template. So if we roll AB, then we've got a choice of using card A or card B for whatever it has. We also have a CDE side, a DE side, and an ABC side. Then we have 2 others, which are the just for C. So we have to use effectively the card off the C deck, or basically we use the lowest ops card available. The other one with the E here is basically the event. So we have to use one of the events that are showing, or again, we'll use the lowest ops card available. That's how I intend to use that. Now, if we get to the case where we're actually doing battle and we have a combat card available, then I will simply choose whether to use it or not. And if I do, then I will leave that A, B, C, D bracket empty. That's like we've played a card out of our hand, and then for one action during that, then we'll just have to use a one ops action. And once we've done that, I'll replace the card where it is. If I forget that, sorry, that's the way it goes. Off to the side, I've placed the markers for the Austria-Hungarians and the Germans if they take control of somebody else's area, and the same with the Russians, the Italians, the British and the French when they come in. I've also got the fort, besiege, destroy markers off to the side, and I've got additional trench markers. The last thing that I've got is my pile of stuff here, and I tend to use these rather than the attack and movement shits that come with the game, simply because I used them until they were dirty, filthy and a little bit mucky. So if I intend to move somebody, I'll simply place the yellow disc on. If I intend to carry out an attack, I'll place a red disc on. If I intend to use the stack as a flanking force in an attack, I've got a red disc there with an F. And to make it a bit easier to see who we're attacking, I'll simply put a flame marker on them, like that. Okay, so it might just help visually with you seeing what I'm trying to do. If it doesn't work for you, again, please let me know. Sorry, you've got to look at my horrible hairy arm and the shadows and all the rest of it. So we're set up. We are ready to go, and the first person is I'll put the dice like that so I know which one to grab. It's the Allied Powers. So they're going to roll their die, and they have an event. So we'll turn over card A and B. I won't turn over the German cards until it's their turn. So, as we said, we've picked the drive on East Prussia, so we could use that event, or we have a Russian reinforcements event. We cannot take reinforcements in the first turn either. So effectively, I have one event I can use, or I have to take the lowest ops point card and use something off it. Oh, just so before we go on, for those not familiar with Paths of Glory or anything else, the cards are basically broken into 3 decks: Mobilization, Limited War, and then Total War. This number up the top here gives you the amount of ops points that you can use, and an ops point is used to activate a stack to either move, attack, or to, if you want to build a trench when able, you can put a movement marker on it and then build a trench. Up to level 1, that's all you can do. Righto. The card name, so this one is No Retreat. This red CC means it's a combat card. So we can use that in reply to a combat that we've initiated or they have initiated, depending on what the wording says. Down the bottom where it says APA1, IT, RU, so we have allied player, allies, Italy, Russia, and this is the replacement points that would be placed with their replacement marker up on the track. And that's all it is. It's easy for me to keep saying, that's all it is. Righto. So the card I am going to use is the Drive on East Prussia. Now this has a little bit more information on it. You'll see it has an asterisk, which means that once it is being used for its event, it does not get shuffled back in the deck. It gets discarded, and that's it. The 2 in the parentheses means that my war status level goes up by 2. So therefore the combined war status is now at 2 as well. It says I can use this card for ops, so I get 4 ops points. It also decreases the German national will by 1. So the German national will has now gone from 12 to 11. The other beauty about this card is that for the rest of this turn, any allied attack against a Central Powers unit in Germany receives a +1 die modifier. So I'll leave that over to the side, ready to go, and we have 4 ops points. So what I intend to do is move some or all of these units. I intend to carry out an attack with this or some of those units, and that attack will go into this German small cavalry unit. Excuse me. And by doing an attack, I've met my mandatory offensive for the Allies. The Russians will be conducting an attack. I want to have a look there. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is also conduct another attack. Into Lortzen. So this unit will attack into Isterburg. These 2 units will attack into Lortzen. But I cannot conduct a flank attack into a forted, entrenched unit. So, yeah. No attack into that. Flank attack, that is. Righto, so you always conduct movement before you conduct combat. So I'm going to move all of these units from Kovno into Tilsit, and that area now comes under Russian control. So we'll just put a little Russian marker in there. Stacking limits in this game are 3 units to an area, whether they are all small, all large units, or a combination of any which way, but loose. Righto, so now we're going to conduct this attack. So you can see these dark railroad tracks here, hopefully. What we have here is a light railroad track, and that means that it's a multi-gauge. So you've got to get on one train, go so far, get onto a different train to go so far. So it reduces your combat effect. And what we do is we get a -1 modifier for the units attacking, utilising that. The other thing we have is this is a small unit by itself, so it will use the light fire table. So if we look at the fire table itself, we have the light fire table for small combat units by themselves, and we have the heavy fire table for large combat units. On the markers, the first number is its attack value, the second number is basically its defense value, and the third number is its movement points. So the small German cavalry unit here has a combat value of 2. So combat value is across the top, die roll, is down the side. So once we've got the die roll, I'll simply move this to where it goes. For large combat units, same thing. So what I have is 3 units here, and we have 3, 6, 7 combat value. So we're on the 6 to 7 box, and we have the -1 modifier. Righto, so unless it's a flanking attack or something else, all combat is simultaneous. So it's green die for the allies, grey die for the central powers. So we have a 6 for the allies with a -1 modifier, gives us a 5. So they're going to do 5 damage, and we have a 3 for the small German unit, so it's going to do 1 damage. You have to utilize as many damage points as you can physically. So I take 1 damage to the small cavalry unit for the Russians. They take 5 damage, so 2 to start with, center number, flip it over, 2 more is 4, and then it is gone. And that'll go back into their replaceable units. We can then move forward and advance into that area with any units which have not been reduced. So I'm going to take 2nd and 4th Infantry Corps into Isterburg, and that combat is complete. Righto. So now we have the second combat, and we have a German reserve small combat unit with a large full-time permanent infantry unit who are entrenched in a fort. Okay, so looking again, trenches. Offensive fire gets a 1 left modifier, so we would go from, say, a 6, 7 down to a 5. And defensive gets a right modifier. So both sides are going to be on the heavy fire table because they all have at least 1 large unit. The other thing that the Germans get is they get this fort defense value of 2 added to their score. So they have 4, plus 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So if we look at theirs, they're on the 6, 7 row, or column, sorry. With their modifier, they will go to the 8, 9. For the Allies, we have 2 stacks of 7 each, which is 14. So we go to the 13 to 15, but we have a left shift, so we come down to the 10 to 12. Okay. The other thing is with this wonderful fight is that both of our units again have a mixed gauge railroads, so we will actually take a -1 shift in, a -1 die roll modifier. Okay, so roll up, and we have a 4 for the Germans on the 8, 9, which gives them a damage of 5 to us, and we have a whole 1 on the 11, 12, which is a damage of 4 to them. You can't go below 1. Simple as that. Now, we also have this here, which says we get a +1 die roll modifier. It made no effect over here on that attack, and it makes no effect on this attack because it'd be +1, -1. So it all evens out. Righto, so the other question then is, does anybody have a combat card that they can use to modify that? And I only have a 1 combat modifier, 1 combat card, but that's for defense, not attack. Righto, so we're going to do 5 damage to the Russians. So I'm going to take 1 there. 2 for its second. I'm going to take 2 for the 13 core and reduce them. That's 4. And then I'm going to take 1 off this small Russian unit for 5. And now we do 4 damage to the big bad Germans. And 4 damage to them. They can simply take 2 on this small infantry reserve unit. But if they do that, they can't take the other 2. So, if they take 3 on there, it's still not going to work. So, the maximum they can take is 3, and they will do so. And that goes into their replaceable units. Okay, so no advance this slippery little sucker. No advance this time because the defending units actually survived our attack. If we had have beaten them by 1 in a fort, they could then have taken an additional step loss so they didn't have to retreat. But didn't work. Righto. So that is the first action by the Allies, and they're done. So now it's up to the Central Powers, and they roll a C, D, E, so they can utilise card C, D or E for any of its ops points, events or replacement points. So what they have is, on A, they have Oberost, which would give them 1 war status point. They could use that card for its 4 ops values as well. And that card allows then, for the rest of this turn, any Central Powers attack that includes a Austro-Hungarian large combat unit to receive a +1 die roll modifier. Or they can use the B card, which is railroad troops. Again, it'll give them 1 point, and this will remove the need for them to have a negative die roll modifier for using multi-gauge railways. And that, I think, is the most bestest, wonderfulest thing they could do. And the other card, of course, they had was the Guns of August. So they'll take 1 war status point, taking the combined war status to 3, hairy arm and all. And they have 2 points that they, 2 ops points. Sorry, they can't use that one. Right! Forget about that. Let's go back 1. They are going to use Oberost first, this card, because they can't use Railroad until Oberost has been used. So they still get the 1 point. They still can use this for ops, so they have 4 ops points, and that card stays good, giving them a +1 die roll modifier during the first turn for any Austro-Hungarian large combat unit attack. Okay. So, 4 ops. What do the Central Powers want to do? Okay. So if we look at the Germans first, they've got 17 core in here in Lortzen by itself, which still gives it a 6 defense value, and it's entrenched. They have this single reserve large combat infantry unit in Allenstein, who has no advantages whatsoever. They have 20 core here in Marienburg with an extra 2 for the fort, and it'd be lovely if we could move that unit into Allenstein or Lortzen to beef them up. The big trouble we've got is if we move out of there, that leaves a straight run into Marienburg and we can take it. Any area, whether it's a fort or a square area that has a red outline, is worth a victory point. So we don't want to do that. This is the German frontier. We don't really want to let the Russians get into there if we can help it. These other two fortress areas at Thorn and Posen only have a small infantry reserve unit, and we have a reduced German infantry unit in Breslau. So we can't really shuffle things around too much. So what to do? I could retreat the reserve unit one into Tannenberg with the forested area. It doesn't really give any advantage other than if this unit was then destroyed or forced to retreat, the Allies could not advance past Tannenberg. They advance into there and have to stop. So again, much for muchness. So if we forget about the Germans at the moment, we still need to do a Austro-Hungarian attack into Serbia. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this stack of units and move this stack of units. So that's 2 ops points. And then I have 2 other ops points that I can use. Again, attacking anywhere through here into Russia and the Polish region is not a good idea because, again, we're going across multi-gauge railways and we have an even number of troops in these 3 areas. And attacking out of Krakow into Kielce, I'm sorry if I get these names wrong. English is my first and only real language, so my apologies. If we use the Kuma unit out of Krakow, it's just going to get wiped. So it's sitting here in its fort, happy as Larry. Okay. So one of the things I could do is move this stack of units from Ruska back into Premysl, and that would have them forted up. So I can move all or some into there. I've got this stack here in Lemberg. There's not much sense in moving them up into Brody because then we have a potential flank attack into there. Again, roads, these brown lines, also mean that the attacker gets a -1 die roll modifier. So what my intent is to move some or all of these units to one or more areas, and also what do we got here at Tarnopol? Okay, so Tarnopol again can be flanked and has no defensive bonuses in this area either. Okay, so I'm going to actually move them because they have a reduced level of defense as well. So the first we'll do is these, and I'm going to move 3 corps in with 12 corps, and then I'm going to move. You have to finish doing 1 stack before you can go onto the other. It's a bit of a pain, but I understand why. I'm then going to use this unit to come down to 1, 2, 3 to Klausenberg. And that just helps them in a mountainous area. With mountains, it's again a left shift for the attacker. So it just gives him somewhere to sit for a moment whilst we realign the front. And nobody can get to him unless they come through Cernowitz or all the way up through Przemysl, Turka, Stanislaw and down. These units, again, I'm going to move the 2 infantry corps, the large units, into Przemysl, like that. And they've picked up a 3 bonus, so that's now 9 there. Now I could move the small cavalry unit into there as well. But again, this has a range of movement of 5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if I can go a different way. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I've got those 2 units there. It's not a great place for cavalry because they get a bonus if they're in an open area. But it aligns the front and the Russians can't get through at the moment without taking a little bit of a bloody nose, hopefully. Okay, down here, these 2 corps are going to move across from Sarajevo into Valjevo, and that will come under the control then of the Austro-Hungarians. And these 2 corps will follow up and move down to Sarajevo. So what we have now is these 2 corps on a following turn can either try and have a go at the Serbian Second Army, or they can come down here to Uzice and have a go at the small unit there. This corps can follow on, or they can try and take out the Montenegrin small mountain unit there. Okay, so that's the end of the first for the central player's power. We've only had 1 action each. I'm just checking the time mark on this, and we're up to 38 minutes, so I'll call it quits there. I'm sorry it's dragged out a bit. It's not really supposed to be a teaching video because anybody who's watched any of my other playthroughs knows that I am the sort of silly old man who tends to misinterpret, reinterpret, and stuff up the rules at times. So I'll do my best to stop being a numpty, but I'm not going to make any promises I can't keep. So take care, have fun, and I'll see you back for the next exciting episode in Illusions of Glory by GMT Games. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.